So with this, I think we are concluding all the talks, and the forum is open for discussion. Sean, thank you for joining in time, and we will start the first question to you. I'm sure there are some questions. I mean, Rajesh is picking up that. So how do you move on from one innovation or one invention to the other? When is your the end point? Say that, okay, we have done this, right? Now when you are going to move to the next one, because last 18 years, we are seeing some 8 or 10 big radical innovations.
Well, as I think we just saw a couple of times, innovation is about ultimately passion and creating something beautiful, and solving a problem. Now, I have frolicked in different fields and specialties, from retina to cataract to glaucoma. Who knows where innovation will take me next? We're looking at, for example, pediatric ophthalmology now with the therapy for progressive myopia. So that's actually the beauty about it. Unlike surgery and unlike very subspecialized care that we're all used to, when we do a lot of residency and fellowship and training, to be absolutely well-trained and perfect in terms of a certain process or procedure or patient care, innovation is very fundamental. And the same principles apply. And in fact, it may come from somebody who is not an ophthalmologist and somebody who is not a fellowship trained surgeon or subspecialist. So when I realized that about 10, 15 years ago, is that you can really inflect the curve of technology and create a new innovation or solution. It becomes more about the fundamentals of perseverance, solutionizing, brainstorming, pressure testing, critiquing yourself, enrolling people, the right people, productization, and it requires a slightly different skill set and requires also risk-taking. So the fundamentals about innovating are not the same as subspecialized care, which we're very used to in all of our training. And that's the beauty part of it. It can take you in any specialty. Maybe one day it may take me outside ophthalmology, and that's okay. We all have to be open to that.
Thank you, Sean. Before we open it up now, we have Professor Arulmozhi Varman now from VIT. He's the Dean of Academics and Research now. I've been always amazed going to that institute for several symposiums and also hackathons. Sir, the team here is really interested to know how do you conduct these hackathons? How do you motivate these young students not to think like Sandal, to think out of the box? Because the generation we see are kind of social media generation. They want everything to be quick. These are things which can never happen quickly. No, you have to take your time. You have to read. You have to work hard. How do you bring that culture?
Great, sir. First of all, many congratulations to Dr. Venkatesh and the team for the greater level of the innovations that you brought into the culture in the Aravind Eye Hospital. So I was keen to look at all the innovations, and I was fortunate to collaborate with Aravind Eye Hospital for the past 6.5 years, along with my student, proud to say that Sandal Kotwala. So we have visited, so we keenly observed that. So the process and place that you taken the roadmap for the innovation path. Coming to this, the specific question on the hackathon and macathon for the university. So mainly, we have thought about to bringing out some of the innovation, uncorrupted mindset from the students into the clear-cut level of the solutions to any real-world level of the thing. So what we understood that instead of putting them into the regular classrooms and the laboratory, why don't we provide the facilities and then support them for the open-minded level of the solutions. And we initially started with the creation lab level of the activity for the solving certain problem. Later, we thought that why don't we structured and conduct the event like the hackathon and macathon for the 24 hours and 36 hours level of the thing, where we provide all the facilities, including the 3D printing, PCB making, and all the mentors support with all the faculty and the industrial experts and also the medical professionals. That's how we started our journey for the hackathon and macathon. So it was greatly picking up right from the 2014. All the students were continuously involved for bringing out the problem statement into the proof of concept, and later it has been evaluated and mentored and guided by all the experts. And that is the journey that what we have introduced in the campus.
It's a pleasure always to see that 36-hour event. I had a couple of opportunities to see, because that's when the proof of concept goes into at least the initial design or a prototype stage. I mean, that's very critical, and your team is doing a terrific job in that, in bringing so many sandals out. So I open up to the champions here. You can straight away ask the question to any of the panelists or speakers. I think Karthi has got a question.
Shadow, just a question on how do you verify if your idea is already present in the field? And I think Sean has replied to that on the chat. And one more question on robotics would be, do you think in our place of socioeconomic status, do you think that robotics is coming up, or do you think semi-autonomous field is the way to go for our class of socioeconomic status?
Yes, I don't think that robotics is quite ready for prime time and for the cost factor, even in the developing countries and the US here, because obviously it's an added cost and the technology is expensive. So in terms of having an impact on population health, we are some years away from that. I mean, think about phacoemulsification. It's been around for 50 years, and it still hasn't been able necessarily to address the global point of blindness. And that's why I really invested some effort and time in the development of the MyLoop and getting away from big mainframe technologies. But at the same time, we do need those technologies as stepping stones to the next generation of precision, the next generation of different procedures and instrumentation that we cannot do currently. Just think about surgery and 1 micron level precision versus 100 micron level precision. There are certain structures we can never address without robots. So we have to push the boundaries, because obviously technology will get cheaper and will morph into something different. But we're really at the very beginning of that journey today, just like phaco 50 years ago. Today, technology accelerates much faster. So I don't think we have to wait 50 years. And because the world today is flatter and it's more global, like we're talking today, and so many innovations are, virtual perimetry here, virtual perimetry everywhere. I think it's coming and bubbling up. I think that it will impact everybody much faster than phaco did for 50 years ago. But it's gonna take a while, and high precision robotics is not something that I see in the next couple of years will be commonplace or mainstream.
The problem is, before one thing is popular, we already say it is robotics, right? It's like for phaco, we are saying laser. When it was laser, we are saying robotics. Yeah. So when real robotics come, we don't know what to say. Now you have to say it's a mice.
I know. That was exactly right. My mother, who is a retina surgeon and a chairwoman of ophthalmology in Bulgaria for many years, when I was sharing with her, well, look about laser cataract surgery now with the femtosecond laser, and how is that being adopted in Bulgaria? And he said, well, unfortunately, I don't think it will be easy, because we've been telling patients that they're getting laser cataract surgery with phaco for so long, because they don't know the difference. So it's going to be hard to sell them on laser, because they already know, or they think they're getting, instead of phaco, which they don't understand what phaco is, they kind of assume it's laser. So you're absolutely right, Venkatesh. we sometimes oversell something. So that's why you have to be very careful what is steak and what is sizzle when you're innovating in technology, because there's some things that are sizzle and it's going to be hard for them to really become commonplace, but they may be a stepping stone to something. And some things are not very relevant. They become hyped and overhyped. So, you know, separating the fluff from the stuff is really important, right? Because if you're going to invest your 10 years of development, because all of these things take blood, sweat, and tears over 10 years. So if you're going to do that, you might as well be very careful. So you focus on something that over the long term will be meaningful and impactful, and it will separate the fluff from the stuff. So that to me sometimes is important, because people get focused on something and go down a certain path when it's too late. 2 years later, they realize that.
Edie, sir, do you want to ask any specific questions to any of the other panel?
Not really. I already see a couple of questions in the chat box. Maybe
Yeah.
we should deal with that. Yeah. I think Sandal has a question, and Anand has posted a suggestion. I think both are worth discussing.
Yeah, Sandal, you want to put that question?
Yeah, I have a question to Sean. So essentially, how do you evaluate if, you know, your idea would be commercial success? As you talked about initial ideas, you know, a lot of people were saying that there is not enough market, or a lot has been already done in this particular domain. So still, how do you get that confidence that, okay, this is going to be a commercial success, or what I'm making is actually going to be value for my user? Because your user will only tell you that after you have spent that 10 years making something like that.
Right. And I would love everybody here to share their thoughts, because mine could be just one aspect. I think this is a really fundamental question, and I don't think there is a single answer. A lot of people say do a lot of market research, but as Steve Jobs and other companies have shown in innovations, consumers don't know what they want. For example, when we started developing Lucentis at Genentech, we went out to all the retina specialists and we asked them, if you can improve vision of patients with wet AMD, but you need to give an intravitreal injection once a month, and you have the right therapeutic, would you do it? And everybody said no, regardless of, because at the time we only gave intravitreal injections when you had endophthalmitis, and so nobody could really envision that you'll be giving a drug once a month. So if you trust that market research, you would completely not start in any drug development for any antibody therapy. So I think marketing is not very helpful. So what I do is, first, I've been married for 20 something years to my wife. So I first want to make sure that whenever I get a new idea, I'm not married to it. I said, I'm only married to my wife.
Right.
And that's plenty, guys. And then number two, try to kill it as hard as you can. Try to kill your idea, because you know you want to pressure test it, and you want to basically see where are the weak points early on. You don't want to find that out after you've put 3-4 years or 5 years or 10 years and realize, damn, I should not have started that journey. So what I do personally, I just say, okay, that's a nice new idea, and an idea is not a solution, and a solution is not a product, and a product is not a business. They're very different. You can have a great idea that is not a solution to anything, and then even if it's a solution, if it takes you $1 million to make a robot, it's not going to be productized. And even if you productize it and you make one, scaling it up may be almost impossible. So there are many different things about taking the journey from idea, solution, product, business, and population health impact. So as you go through all of this, I recommend people really pressure test their idea, because it may be a great idea and that's all it is. Or it may be a great idea and it's only a great solution for 2-3 places, and that's all it is. So if you want to take it all the way to impact and a product, you have to pressure test it through each stage of idea, solution, product, and business, because ultimately it has to be a business to be self-sustaining. Like Aravind, if you're losing money and you cannot pay your doctors, you'll never impact anything. So that's what I do. And I'm curious what other people here do when they think about that, because that's my learning from the years.
I see a couple of hands. Professor, go with Professor Arul.
Yes, Doctor. This is a question to Anand Sivaraman to understand that what are all some successful strategy that you are adapted when you are introducing the new innovative product around the world. How you scaled up?
Sure. I was
Yeah.
just going to also respond with one other point to what Sean talked about. At Remedio, we use this philosophy called KISS or KISS, which is keep
Yeah.
it simply on the shelf, which is in case, let us say that you identify that in the early development of the process, it is not commercially becoming viable. You realize that you got to create a market for it, and we actually keep it on the shelf. For example, the Fundazon phone that sold 2,700 to 3,000 cameras across the world. Before that, we had actually an ophthalmoscope that we had made, which is much better than conventional ophthalmoscopes, and we couldn't sell even one of them, right? So we kept it on the shelf, and the same ophthalmoscope became a Fundazon phone. So to a certain extent, I think it helps in being able to fail early in the process, because the process of engineering and going through regulatory and bringing to market should only be done once, let's say, there is a certain amount of commercial viability that you really see on it. So that was one point. In terms of scaling, one thing we learned was we published a lot. One of the things that we found out the hard way is when we were starting to look at India as a market, and we finished the products and brought it to market in India, we went to Singapore. One of the things that we learned is we sort of had a made in India syndrome attached to us, right? Which is, look, how good is the quality of product? This is really good. And what really is the brand visibility of Remedio? So I think that's when we took a conscious decision to ensure that we will publish both the positives, negatives, and however good or bad the product is. But we started the act of publishing. In fact, we started off with the first paper coming out of Arvindai Pondicherry. But what it did was 14-15 papers. When you have 14 to 15 papers on the product coming out every year, it creates that credibility. Then you start having a pull rather than a push for the product, and that's really helped definitely in the US. Much of what we went in fact, most recently when we went into Walmart to place our devices as well, it came about as a result of them having read some of the papers. So that was one simple strategy that we used, because I believe strongly that technical marketing is as important, if not more important, in medical devices than, let's say, the marketing to create the push for the product in the market. So that was one that we used. Second, in terms of scaling, was choose the geographies wisely. For example, the reason I'm here in Mexico for some of the products is we sort of grouped certain countries that we could see. So instead of going to large countries that had many ophthalmologists, we went the other way around. We said, can I take where there are smaller number of ophthalmologists, because that's where then telehealth is going to have a relevance for some of the products that we have. So choosing the geographies that you go to also is very relevant. Choosing those that you will have impact and also have business viability on. That's the second part of it. The last, I guess, is creating an ecosystem. For example, we've been interacting with this very interesting group. It's a set of product designers in Mexico City, and they are making actually a new way of a portable topographer. So what we started doing is, we said that we'll start selling through other design houses who are also about impact and are about bringing products to market. Because one problem we had was the devices that we were making would leave India at let's say $4,000, but it become $12,000 by the time it reached the end user, let's say in Mexico. So we started creating this small groups of like-minded individuals who would respect a certain especially in the developing world, not in the developed world, who would respect a certain minimum or a maximum margins that you would have. So our distributor agreements would then start getting that way. So those are the three ways. So in the developing world, it's a very different way by which we get to market. In the developed world, it's a different way. But one common is publications. Publications have really helped in building the credibility around the products, because I think it's more difficult selling a product that is affordable than it is to sell a product that is actually expensive, because the mindset is affordability means it's cheap. And we had this issue even when we were doing the HIV/AIDS diagnostics. Our sales in India was very, very low. It was when we got the FDA approval and CDC started buying from us that our sales in India actually went up. significantly, right? Because we had reduced the price from 1,500 rupees to 100 rupees for a test. But I learned the hard way that when you price it at 100 rupees, the first question people ask is, what, something must be wrong about this, right? And how can it be so low? So it's therefore very important that you also consider that in mind when you actually go to market, in terms of ensuring that you are not positioning yourself in a manner that you're considered cheap. Yes, so nowadays in Remedio, we don't talk about affordability. We don't talk about cost. We talk about only what does this mean for your patient? What does this mean for you? That way, then it becomes like, oh, by the way, it is affordable. But we don't bring affordability as the main reason why you would buy a product. Just because otherwise you have perceptions that take very significant effort to break.
Yes, Ashwin?
Yes, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for being here. I'm very fortunate to hear so many inspirational talks. My question is to both Mr. Anand and Mr. Sani. The same question that was asked to me when I joined Arvind as a resident was, why ophthalmology and why Arvind? I would like to ask the same question to two of you.
I think to me it came completely out of luck. It started with that mail, and eventually, a lot of projects came. But why I stayed, or why what I love is simplicity, the very frankness, and the culture. When you are in this culture, when you meet those people, that there is something about the whole thing, the culture that the organization as a whole has. Even I meet so many doctors who are Arvind alumni, and they'll have the same culture. So I think it's just love of that culture and the enjoyment of doing true research, which this organization has offered me. And yeah, I think that's my reason.
Coming into ophthalmology, it's an accident for both. I think that they gave that briefly in the talk. Meeting
ophthalmology was definitely an accident. But the reason I personally have loved ophthalmology is because it's one of those few medical sciences where there is a reasonable amount of objectivity that you can go to, right? And it's also one of those areas where, because I'm heavily into testing and devices, you can create huge value in terms of impact if you decouple testing from treatment. When I was in the in vitro diagnostics field, testing was already decoupled from treatment, right? The physician would get a blood report that you would get done in a lab. So the two were actually decoupled. Ophthalmology presents that very interesting perspective where you can actually decouple testing from treatment and therefore have much higher impact. That was one of the main reasons of ophthalmology. With respect to why Arvind, I think it's a very giving culture, right? And that's what I mean. Share around, you learn when you actually share around a lot more. And that's really what I've learned in Arvind, which is you don't have barriers, right? The learning happens very well when you don't have barriers and when you're able to go and do things. And this I say because having built products when I was in MIT in Boston, building products in India, the key difference is that, right, to a certain extent in India and especially at Arvind, there is a culture where there isn't, nobody stops you from that learning, and there is no questions in terms of what does this mean, so long as there is an alignment in vision. And that simplicity is something that I seek with partnerships, and that simplicity is something which I've seen at Arvind in the interactions that I've had. And that could be irrespective of whether it is the final product or very early prototypes. And the other beautiful thing is, actually not many people know this, the idea for the phone at the back and being able to do a pinch zoom came actually from a vision technician, where she basically said, look, I have to move lenses in order to zoom in. Why can't, if you have a phone, why can't you just pinch zoom in? That's when we redid the optics so that they allowed for pinch zooming so that the optic disc nerve can be seen very clearly rather than putting in zoom lenses. So some of those are the reasons, which is if you are listening, there are many pockets within Arvind where you learn a lot.
Yes, Satya.
Thank you. There was a lot of inspiring talks that we've been listening to. My question was more on how do we create the collaboration between doctors and engineers? Whether, like, I wanted to ask Arul sir also whether the hackathons are like questions are already put forth, or how do they go about?
Yeah, it's a very important thing. Is the first and foremost step is we first go to the industry and the healthcare professionals and the hospitals and the experts. We collect the real world problem statement from the doctors and also for the all the professionals. And we arrange as a pre-Hackathon seminar event. We call all the students, those who are interested to take part into the hackathon and hackathon. So we initially give them the complete idea about with the experts what the real world problem they are facing. That is at least 15 days in advance, so that they also really work out to understand the domain connected problem. Then we linkage with those the experts with the interested group, so that they clearly come up with the plan for the hackathon activity for the 24 hours and 36 hours level of the event. That's where our students really try to understand the other domains problem statement. Then we are taking that the platform to the proof of concept level. So the idea is at the end of 36 hours, the same medical professionals and the industry experts, they are part of the evaluation team, and they judge that the how far the expectations are fulfilled, and where the students the talent need to be guided in further levels to scale it up to meet the industry standards or whatever the medical standards. That's how we are approached, and we really open to collaborate with all the hospitals. So in fact, we have signed the MOU thanks to Dr. Venkatesh as bringing out that the opportunity for the students. In fact, the Sandal is headed for the one complete hackathon activity. So we provide all the facility to the students to make that the event in a more fruitful and the productive.
Also, I would like to add one thing. So, Dr. Satya, a lot of students would be doing their final year projects, probably under Arul sir and under Arul sir. So, some of these problem statement are, if they are good enough to be worked out as a final year project. So, I think that can be shared. So, recently, few of our interns did the Slow Vision 8 device, for which we recently received a BIREC grant, or other one was the eye drop installer. So I think these you can probably share some of these ideas to Arul sir, and some of the final year students can work on these ideas for about 3 to 6 months time.
Okay, so want of time, there are a couple of hands more. We'll just quickly take those questions. I mean, we want to stick to time. We'll finish in another minute or two. Pranesh.
Thank you so much, sir. I have a question for Sandal. We have lots of residents listening to this talk right now. They all waiting to be inspired. So one question I want to ask you is that you are a very young person. You are a young star, and what will be a message for these young residents who are watching, and what are the prerequisites that a youngster should have to innovate?
First, you have to lose hair, Pranesh. You saw some of the pictures, right?
Yeah, so I think you are in a very good place already. Of course, I've seen so many residents and doctors, and you're really occupied with patients. So I think taking some time out is definitely important. But I've also seen Arvind as a system gives you enough space to work upon ideas and do this. Okay, so answer your question. I think in simple terms, one of my mentor told me once that for innovation or for entrepreneurship, you need two things. One, you need to hear the birds, hear the sunshine. So instead of seeing the sunshine, you should be able to hear the sunshine, where before sun actually shines, before things come to market, you should have this ability to hear the bird chirping or other things by which you can see a sunshine, or this is what's going to happen. And second thing was singing a song. If you can sing a song in a conference, that means you should have guts to really go with your ideas, or really follow what you feel like following. And of course there are a lot of failures. I think almost I was working on a sandwich machine. I was working on so many things before doing Alpha Alias, so a lot of things actually also failed. But yeah, it just keep going and keep trying out things. So that's what I think would probably work. Yeah.
Okay, we'll take the last question from Dr. Fatima.
Thank you for all the wonderful inspirational talk. And the question to Dr. Sean, the great game-changing innovations when you make, do you, when you were involved in one particular innovation, when you get many more ideas in different fields, do you, I mean, what I want to ask is, you will concentrate only in that, finish it off, and then go to next, or you will have multiple activity at the same time?
Wonderful. That's a great question. So I think somebody great said once, try to do many things, but always one at a time. And that it's hard to really, especially if you also have a clinical practice and you have to learn if you're a resident. So I definitely agree. It's a good thing to focus on one. Now, when you get into the team approach and when you now have a number of teams and engineers, now you can parallel process it, because then you can really be one source of input to a bigger team, and you shouldn't be a stumbling block. You should allow them to get whatever feedback they need, but you can parallel process it. And now I'm involved in about 5 or 6 different projects, and here at the New York Pioneer and so forth, but you have to prioritize them, and you have to know what is it that you can do so you don't hurt that project. And what was said here about residents, 2 of my projects, the online virtual perimetry and the intraoperative aberrometry, I started as a resident and doing that. So I really encourage residents to do that, because really those are products that started back then, and it took time. It really took time, and it was something that you need to persevere. But always when you do many things, do them one at a time. Even if you say, this day I'm going to work on this project, and make sure that you're not leaving things undone, because then you're going to fail.
That's a terrific answer. Fatima, I met Sean in one of the ACRS where he was presenting he called it as aphakic refraction to begin with. Now it looked really crazy. How can you go intraoperatively, start doing your keratometry, biometry, and then confirm the power, exact power? And then it became a product over the next 4 or 5 years, when after he finished his residency or his fellowship, and then he kept working on several other things. I think, like what he said, he's got only one wife. All these are part-time, and the best thing I've seen, Sean, is next movement happens very quickly, but once the product is refined and done. So again, I take this opportunity. I think there's no better way to give a tribute to our founder, Dr. Venkat Swamy, than having this excellent symposium. I would like to thank each one of the speakers and panelists for actively participating. We'll share the YouTube link also for you to share it with a larger audience. We have a good number of people watching on YouTube as well. Thank you again, and looking forward for this motivation to happen. But I'm sure the motivation which we had today is going to inspire a lot of young ophthalmologists who are here and elsewhere watching this. Definitely they're going to think out of the box, and now they have better ways of how to take this idea to the next level and also to market it. Because like what many of you said, it's not only the innovation which matters, we also have to innovate ways of getting it really used for patient care. I think that is again a very key message of this session. And thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.